was pretty funny. Your ice cube drop. Did you do that on purpose?
Impeccable timing.
I know.
Welcome.
It was like,
Welcome to the Wednesday live stream of the Reefing on the Rocks edition, where we're chatting reef, answering questions, and whatever rabbit holes we go down into as always. Jay, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you. It's good to see you. Les Rock, I like it, John. Matthew, John Wright, John Reef of Vermont. Good to see you guys. So, Jay, we're both setting up some new desk tanks. So I thought that's kind of fun. Bring in the reef a little closer, even though there's one like 3 feet away from me. There may be a new tank slowly coming to fruition on the opposite side of my monitor, so I'm surrounded by reefs, so it's kind of fun. It's been a while since I've had, a nano tank, and I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah, right. I mean, me too. Actually, it's cool, and there's so many it's just so much fun stuff you can do with a nano tank that you can't do with a big reef tank because by design, as soon as you get a big tank, you want to fill it with stuff. And as soon as you fill it with stuff, there's certain stuff which you just can't really put in there anymore.
That's
And
fair.
so a little nano tank actually. I mean, we were kicking around some ideas, right? I mean, I think
Hmm.
you're gonna do a clownfish nan
Yeah.
tank. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had, I like anemones, but again, with all the acros, they just like to walk over them and kill them, and that gets very expensive. So I think in a nano would be kind of fun. Get like a really cool, like a Colorado sunburst or some like really bright, cool nem in there, and like a couple, probably like a pair of designer clowns or something just different. I've never had fancy designer clowns, so I'm like, this is a good excuse. And then I think I'm gonna go like hardcore on like cool inverts, like those like clear, like an enemy shrimp with like little white dots on them. There's like sexy shrimp, and pom pom crabs, like all the cool little inverts. I just want to like load it up with those. I think that'll be cool.
It's yeah. I mean, it's funny because actually, when I used to dive a lot, it would be when you first go diving, right? You're always out looking for the big pelagic fish, like the sharks. You want to see sharks. You want to see dolphin. You want to see stuff like that, the big stuff, barracuda, turtles, right? And then after
Hmm.
you've seen a lot of those, um, the last few times that I ever went diving, I actually just sat on the bottom and
Hmm.
just watched a small area of the reef for for the better part of an hour, and it was absolutely incredible. All the cool little creatures and everything going on, right?
Hmm.
And like you're saying, like the nano tank, right? You just get that ability to actually focus on that. We were talking about too, right? Like all those little gobies. There's such
Yeah,
awesome little gobies, but when you
there's
put them
like
in a
super
bigger
nano
tank,
ones. Hmm.
you'll never see them again. So, yeah, desktop tank gives you that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. Have you just like there's tons of really cool nano gobies, which I think I might end up adding some at some point. But for just out of curiosity, like in the wild, have you ever seen like sexy shrimp or like little tiny crustaceans in the wild?
Yeah, especially if the place I'm talking about was actually one of the last places I went diving was in Sipidon in Malaysia, and I mean this is like this was kids ago, right?
Yeah.
Like the journey you're just beginning
Hmm.
has ended my diving career for the last decade and a half.
Fair enough.
Um, but yeah, when we went, exactly that is sitting there, and what's crazy is just sitting there on this one spot. Like there's lots of anemones there with clownfish
Yeah.
hosting all kinds of different, and you can sit there and watching all those little shrimp and other types of nudibranchs.
Hmm.
All those kind of creatures are just hard at work in the general environment, and then even like some what was interesting was sitting there was that the reef, it looks like it's just flat rock, but actually there's usually crevices and almost pathways underneath. And I saw so many different types of eel,
Oh, cool.
like blue ribbon eels, snowflake eels, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm not actually. I might be claiming the wrong eels depending on the geography, but
Hmm.
they were pretty much everything that I've seen in the hobby. I saw just in that 10 square feet, just traveling underneath the general reef level was kind of cool, as well as all the little
Huh.
stuff. Mantis shrimp too. Mantis shrimp are
Oh,
cool.
that's cool. I haven't seen those in the wild. Do you know what? I don't know if this is really nano tank appropriate, but one thing that would be really cool to do one day is a garden eel tank. Like I've seen those in the wild, and they're like doo 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 going around. When you come close, like gone. But I love those things. I think they're super cool.
want to say they're Caribbean. I think I saw them diving on the Caribbean, but I could be wrong.
I was in Cayman Islands when I saw them in the
Oh
wild.
yeah, so Caribbean.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might be in the Pacific too, but that's where
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing 'em. Huge
Mm-hmm.
fields of them, right?
Yeah.
Like sand flats with really cool.
A few years back, I
Same
went.
with jawfish too. Actually, I'd
Hmm,
love to have a jaw like a small jawfish tank.
yeah,
See what they're doing.
that'd be pretty cool. They, huh? Yeah, their jumpers definitely need a lid, but yeah, jawfish are super cool. I used to have the gold, yellow, and blue one, super cool fish, and then one day disappeared, so I don't know what happened to them, but super cool. Like the things are just gorgeous. I love those guys. The blue spotted jawfish. A couple years back, when we were in the cave and it's on the coral restoration ship with Patrick actually from Reef. He actually spotted them, but we big anemone with all these like tons of little sexy shrimp on it cruising around, and it's just cool to be in the massive ocean and just find all these little tiny creatures. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be heavy on like the really cool random whatever weird little creatures I can find. It's gonna be a good one.
It's kind of a cool challenge too to build like an aquascape that provides that looks cool. But provides protection and cover for these animals, but also prevents them from hiding too well, so that you
Yeah,
can always kind of see what they're up to and what they're doing. It'll be neat.
that is a very good point. Um, I had a Red Sea 20-gallon Nano years ago, and one of the coolest nano fish ever I put in there was the flaming prawn goby, who had those crazy wild fins. But I literally saw him for like less than a minute once a week. He was like the most like elusive fish ever. He always hid. So I may or may not try one again, but he was like the craziest looking little nano fish. It was cool. NSB Reefer, I caught 12 to 14 mantis shrimp on my rod, a rod and reel with cut bait. That's crazy, catching a mantis shrimp
Yeah,
like
that's
just with a
crazy.
fishing rod.
Were they like big ones? Were they big ones?
That's super
Were
crazy.
they little ones? Yeah, like
A mantis shrimp would be kind of fun to keep. Have you ever had one?
we had a couple in the office. We had a couple inadvertently. Um,
Yep.
and we had one where one of the sale or service techs had one on his desk tank, like
Mm-hmm.
a fairly big one, about yay big,
Yeah.
and he was the coolest. Like he would he would put like snails and stuff in there, and that
Yep.
thing would just go to town on them. And then it built like a whole um, I don't know, best fortification would be the best way to describe it. Like, and I mean, he was cool. He was really cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind one of those. But I mean, I don't know what else you could keep with them other than just the mantis shrimp. But
So I've heard mixed things. Some say yes, you can keep them with fish, and they'll like have been fine. But again, I mean, it's also possible to go for it. But yeah, like any of your snails, any of those creatures will likely become a bit of a snack. And let's be real, yeah, 12 to 14 inches was a big one. That's crazy. That's pretty
that is
cool.
a big mantis shrimp. I bet it was stunningly. They're so pretty.
Yeah, especially if you look at the peacock ones, they're like a rainbow. Like they're so crazy looking. Um, yeah, it was really good. Nice. So I don't know. It'd be fun. I like all these weird things. Like now that I've been in the hobby for a while, I'm like, what's the weirdest thing I can keep? Like what's not common to keep? Like these are all the places my mind goes now. Is just to figure out like different ways to mix it up.
Well, especially with this nanotech thing, like having a couple nanotanks would be interesting because it's another one where like we were talking about flower anemones, right?
Yeah.
Like flower anemones are beautiful, but
Oh
again,
yes.
they get kind of lost, and you can't really do them in a reef tank because they kind of get lost,
Hmm.
generally speaking. Whereas you could definitely do them as a display, like as a
Hmm.
and that might be a cool 15 to 40 gallon
Yeah.
tank that's just heavily flower nems. Same with maybe like shrimp goby
Hmm.
pairs. I don't know if you can keep multiples.
Yeah.
I would
I
assume
don't know.
so.
Never tried on that one. Um,
But
yeah. Yeah.
they need a certain space. That's actually one of the things I saw diving was there would be one every like yay far.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Huh.
I remember that now. Like, there'd be a hole with a shrimp and a pistol shrimp in there, a goby and a pistol shrimp,
Huh.
and then another like 2 feet over, there'd be another one and another one. So maybe it's just you just need the
That's
correct
cool actually.
spacing.
I don't think
Yeah,
I've
it's
ever seen
interesting.
a pistol shrimp goby pair in the wild. That's freaking cool. It's crazy to see them like Doot, 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 doot. You know, everyone has their own little condo on the reef. Here's my rock. You got your rock.
You have to. I mean, and that's what I was saying about the watching a small. You have to get down there and you sit there
Yeah.
and watch, because if you're swimming, you'll never, you'll see the big stuff, right? You'll
Hmm.
be see big fish and distracted. But if you go down, and
That's
it's
true.
pretty interesting.
Was it the quieter you are, the more you'll hear, listen or whatever, the more you'll hear. John
And they
Reef.
come out too. They
Yeah.
come out like once you're not a shadow,
Yeah.
large predator going overhead, I guess.
That's what I used to do with the garden eels. John Reef, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Always learn a lot on every ReefDude stream. Today's contribution. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, John. So that is true though. Next time you go diving, if anyone goes diving or snorkeling, pick a spot and just stay there and don't move for a while and see what kind of cool stuff you can see. Like I know even some places in the seagrass, it's like there's tons of crazy like pipefish and all these little, or like pygmy seahorses, tons of cool stuff that you normally would just never see. But you just hang out for a while, and you'll start to notice all these little creatures as they come out, which is really cool. Have you ever done any like dwarf pipefish or seahorses or any of those type of little creatures?
I haven't. Oh, I haven't. Did I? No. We again, Connor actually,
Yeah.
he kept seahorses for a while. Again in the office, he had. I forget. He had one forever,
Yeah.
and then it passed, and we got all bummed, and then we
Yeah.
looked it up, and it was like actually really old.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it died of old age.
Hey, I mean, that's a good thing. If you think about it, like, there can be, like, there's been lots of reports that, even clownfish and stuff, like, in the wild, usually a bigger fish, something eventually happens to it. So a lot of these fish can actually live a really long time, and they can live, very, very long captivity. Like, I was reading some things about clownfish that were like 30, 35 years old, which is crazy. Like, that's pretty dang old.
I think we had some that were like close to 20.
Yeah.
I think Tim Marks had a couple of tomato clowns that he had were like the first that he ever had, and they traveled with him and everything, and came
Huh.
to and we lost them during Hurricane Ivan. We were
Oh,
moving
dang.
buildings. Yeah, it was really sad. He kept them in the freezer at work for like
Yeah.
months and months. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure why, but just wasn't ready to let them go yet, I guess.
Fair
Um,
enough. Fair enough.
but it was tragedy. We ran out of battery backup, and then we ran out of generator.
Ah, dang, that sucks.
That was how
Hurricanes,
long. Yeah.
that's a long outage.
We were out. I think we were out of power back then for 10, 12 days, something
Oh, wow.
absurd.
That's a
Yeah.
long time.
Which up here in Pennsylvania is nuts. Like absolutely nuts. Like that's just
Mhm.
unheard of.
Where I am, it's usually rarely ever a power outages. And then I ended up buying that battery backup. And like literally within like 2 weeks, we had two. I was like, what the heck? I'm like serendipitous that I actually picked this up. And
Yeah,
then,
you're like normally it's the other way around. As soon as
yeah,
you buy that snowblower, it'll never snow again. As soon as you
that was
you pay for
extremely
the insurance.
serendipitous. I know,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So the fact that I used it like 4 days later I plugged in like the Nero 7 and threw it in the tank. I'm like, hey, here's your flow. Which is crazy. This how that correlated. And like literally a week later, again, another like someone drove into a telephone pole or something. There's another one. So I'm like, what the heck? And then because on like across the bridge where there was fires, apparently they shut the power and some people are out of power for like a week. So this really made me think of like, okay, should I be upping this a lot more? Like, should I get more and bigger battery backups at least for my flow to keep things going extended? Like it's not as likely, but then I'm like, okay, here's somewhere that's like 20 kilometers away from me, and this happened to them for a week without power. So I'm like, maybe I should up my game a bit there, but you never know.
So do you have like any reefing buddies locally that you have like a co-op with for saltwater and emergency supplies?
No, but that is a not bad idea.
So I remember because what just sparked my memory of that was the hurricane talk, right? Because Richard Back, I remember he was telling me one time I was talking to him right before a hurricane, and he was busy like boarding up his house and
That's
everything else, and
crazy.
I was like, what do you do? He's like, oh yeah, we're fine. Like I have a generator, like, and then on top of it, he was like, they have like, I don't know what it was. It was either he had a friend that had a shed, or
Mm.
somebody had given up part of their garage where they had a communal like 600 gallons of salt water that any of them could draw on. You know what I mean? Like if they
Solid.
needed it. I was like, yeah, I'm like, it's really smart. You know,
That is. That's pretty cool.
it's
I could,
Sunday midnight. You got a disaster happening.
you go to your buddy's house and there's two taps on the side of his garage for our own salt. That's a good friend.
It's like reefers assemble. You know, and
I like it. I like it. Sadly, no, but I like that idea. I have my like 30, 40 gallon reservoir, and that's about it. That's all I got to work with. So I do like that though. I have on a completely random note. I don't have an auto top off yet for my little desktop tank yet, but I bought a last year I put a second RODI in my kitchen, so it doesn't have DI on it, but it's RO with a tank under my kitchen. So I just use that one, fill up a cup, bloop, dump it in, and it's been my on tap water now, which is actually very very handy. So I mean, if you are a reefer, it's a good secondary use of your RO for got some filtered drinking water. Plus, you're like, whoop, use for all this random stuff as well.
yeah, that's a good point. Like how clean is because your fridge has a filter in it. You're right. Like you're
Well,
talking about a water dispenser for your
no, no,
faucet or for your fridge.
no. I put in a full RO unit under my counter, and I
Oh,
put
okay.
that little secondary tap thing and the little like couple gallon picky tank or whatever underneath. So I've been using that. But yeah, you would have the carbon filtered water, which is half there. So whether or not I would use that would really depend on like your TDS and like where your water's at. But for an RO unit minus the DI, I mean I've been using that for lots of random stuff too, and that works pretty well. On a unrelated note, I also because before, as you can tell from Jay's jungle in the background, we were just talking about because we both have like carnivorous plants and different things. And we were talking about how a lot of them they thrive more under using RO water. I was like, oh, that's perfect because as some of you guys know, I got a vivarium as well beside me, which I might do a video on in the near future. But again, I pipe that into the reef tank, so it also gets my RODI water for all the misting and all the plant watering, which works really well. So it's definitely useful to have RO/DI.
You're very talented at growing things. Um, you definitely managed to make everything flourish.
We'll see.
Like I feel like your dog is probably sprouting another tail. You know.
D- no, not quite that good. We ended up getting an auto feeder for the dog because he would be like a mooch and he'd be like, yeah, I haven't eaten yet, and he'd try and suck our bowl, so he gets double meals and he's getting pretty chunky. So we eventually got an auto feeder for him, so now he's got the robot, and now he's like a gangster. He'll go up to it, like hitting with his nose, try and knock it over, trying to get a couple more kibble to fall out, and it's like, yeah. So that's another story, but
That's like I think that's the peak of like canine intelligence is like when they, they become subversive, when they understand, when they learn how they
how to work
learn
the
the
system.
systems to work the system. Our dog does the same thing. Like if somebody comes home and feeds him and then leaves, he will absolutely pretend like he wasn't fed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will, the next person who comes in, he will be all about, oh, you just got home. It's time for another meal. It's time to feed me. I'm so hungry. It's been all day. And I don't know
Right?
whether it's that 5 minute thing where they forget that they've eaten
Nah, they're
or no, yeah, okay.
they're
Fair
just
enough.
hustlers. They want all they can
Yeah,
get. They're smart enough to work the system. Now,
I
okay,
can't blame him. Can't blame him.
so bringing it back to fish tanks, fish are similar. Every time you walk up to the tank, they're like, "We're starving, feed me!" Right? And people love feeding fish. So that's another interesting parallel because I mean, if you have lots of algae issues and your whole family's feeding your tank, they're likely everyone's chucking in fish food all the time because everyone loves watching fish eat. So that's another prime example of an auto feeder, which is a wise thing, which I do not have on my tanks for some reason, but I should add.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Right? Because it's very like it is easy to overfeed a tank, and it's also easy to underfeed a tank, depending on the type of fish. Right? If you have anthias and stuff that school constantly very active fish, they appreciate lots of mini meals through the day. And I know lots of people, they might just feed their tank in the morning or just at night, or depending on what it is. But so depending on the type of fish you keep, adding a lot of feeders is a wise thing, which I'm half selling myself on the fact of I should reinstall them.
I know
But
you're like, on another note, I could really use a larger aquarium. It's good to have a larger aquarium. You should definitely get a larger aquarium. Like, it takes up more space. It's more stable. You can have more coral and fish in it.
it's
So
such a
you,
interesting dynamic on that one.
what, rationalizing into
No, like
purchasing
this,
more aquarium
yeah,
equipment? It's not. It's a
no,
very
not
simple dynamic. That's exactly what you inherently want to do.
well, it is. Okay, we all love new fish toys, right? Everyone loves new gear. But thinking back on my reefing journey, like my very first ever reef tank was 12 gallons, and then I had a 16 gallon, and then I had a 24 gallon, then I had a 30 gallon, then I had a 150 gallon, then I had like a 200 gallon, and then probably like something else in the middle. And now I have like another like 160 gallon, and now I have a smaller one on my desk again. Oh, there's another 20 gallon there somewhere. But it's like one aspect, you have a little tank, and then you run out of coral space and you want a bigger tank, and you run out of coral space and you want a bigger tank. And that's kind of the progression. Like most of my upgrades are field of I ran out of coral space and I want to buy more coral, so I need a bigger tank. And then, but on the flip side, you lose the ability to keep a lot of these really cool little like nano creatures, which I kind of miss. Like, there's a certain intimacy about a smaller tank where there's like, you're up close, you're looking at all these little micro creatures and stuff, which is really cool. So it's interesting the different dynamics and how I went in a little bit of a circle. And I'm like, okay, how do I get them all now? Like, this is how you know too many tanks. But
The problem I have, and I have this problem with plants too, is I'm a hoarder. Like, when it comes to living things, it's like this notion of like you can never have enough, right?
yeah.
So it's so hard to just get rid of the stuff. And if somebody wants it, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy, right? Oh, can I get some of that? Like, oh, you have these extra plants, can yes, absolutely. Same
Yeah.
with the coral.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your mind you're like rationalizing, well, they'll enjoy it, or if it's coral, then there's an insurance policy out there if
Yeah.
something were to happen to my coral. But it took a long time to be able to be like, yeah, the tank's overgrown. Let's just clip this, and nobody wants it. So, alas, we must dispose of it,
Yeah.
and let it go, right? But I have seen examples of that out in the wild where people, things like yeah, I must have seen acres in somebody's possession of like green Monty cap,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
Like,
I'm
grew like
like,
a weed
yeah, where they just went and they just got more and more systems to
for their Monty.
accommodate the green Monty cap, and to the point where it's like almost absurd, and it's like, why do you have all of this? Like, what is all of this for? Well, it grows, and it's not really doing any harm. It's like, yeah, but you could have so much other stuff in this
Mm-hmm.
real estate. But it's real. Like, the hoarding desire is real. Like, I mean, I think we can all attest to it. It's kind of funny.
There's also like the whole like Pokemon desire where it's like gotta collect them all. I need all these corals, all these things. Like, I've been really good for the past year. Like, I bought hardly any corals, but now that I'm setting up that little tank again, I'm like, ooh, what should I put in it? What should I get? So I've been like starting to itch again to add some new goodies. But
How does your spouse feel about all this? How is Miss Rich?
jeez. So I'm supposed to have a 2 tank limit, and I'm already over it now. So my original plan was like, okay, I'll like shut down one of my big tanks and put a bunch of nanos in that same space, so I could have more tanks in the same physical area. And then somehow I just end up with a third one. But I have this ultimate plan of moving my office to a bigger room, or potentially doing like a bit of a deck expansion and stealing the carport and turning that into my office and having lots of space to play with for all my crazy experiments and stuff. So we'll see. There's the wheels are slowly turning for some future master plans to have more room
But
to play.
generally, she's accommodating. It's not putting stress on your marriage, at least, right?
Wow. As long as it stays in my office, which is why I have a giant vivarium and reef tank and a nano and all this stuff in this tiny little office. So eventually I need to upgrade it. I need more space. But anyways, aside from that, it's all good.
It'd be froze for a second there. It's an interesting thing. I'd love to get a poll from the community, like, the male community, like a relative rating scale of how how much difficulty the domestic situation imposes on one's reef keeping or aquatics experience.
I added a poll. Does your spell support your tank? So I'm curious to see. Like, is it in general? Are
I
they
mean,
for it? Or
they
are they
are
like, or like something in the middle? I should put
they
a third
are
option.
out there. I've seen them, particularly in Orlando.
Yeah.
I have seen them, like particularly in Orlando, where you see couples come in and they're like together, they're in sync.
Hmm.
I've seen it too, where like you see them even when, well, you've been down there for like the Magnas and stuff. Like you see
Yeah.
them where like it's actually the lead Aquarius is actually the wife, and the husband
True.
is dragged along to the reef stores.
Yeah.
I mean, it's less frequent, but it's there.
Yeah.
Um, but the one where both of the people are into it, I mean, that's like a unicorn relationship.
Do you
I think.
Savvy's reef tank? I did tank tours on him a few. I think I've done 2 videos with him in the past, and I'm gonna do another in the near future. It is cool because with him, he's like the one that does all the maintenance and the techie stuff, but his wife is like more the biologist, like the fine tuning stuff. So they each have their own kind of like niche within the tank, and I think it's really cool.
Wow, so they actually have like a symbiotic
Yeah.
relationship
Yeah, they'll totally buy coal
with
together.
their
They'll do
keeping. That's
stuff.
really cool.
Like he maintains it, and then she's like more like he'll do like the water changes, all that type of stuff, and she'll be the one to like tweak the dosing and stuff. So it's cool. It's really cool to see that they each have their own dynamics with it. I'll film an update with them soon. But yeah, it's really cool. All right, so we're 88% supportive so far. 12% not so much. Not bad. Pretty
Wow, that's really good. Yeah,
good.
that's interesting. Yeah. How does your wife feel about it in particular? I mean, obviously the space in the home, right, is
Yeah.
that's not negotiable. But like in terms of the actual act, did she like the aquariums?
I think she likes it. I know when I first started reef keeping, like I would just like talk about it way too much, and she was sick of it. But now I'm like, I get it all out in my live stream, so so no, it's pretty good. So I think she's good otherwise. And I kind of go in spurts. Like I have a lot of stuff automated now, so I can go for spurts of not doing too much other than cleaning the glass and feeding it, and then eventually the kid's sleeping, whatever. Then once a month, I'm like, all right, I'll mix up some new stuff for dosing and top off stuff, and throw a pump of citric acid once in a while. So my maintenance is more periodic than it used to be, but otherwise, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right,
I'm excited to hear the poll is 88% supportive. That's really good.
it's down to 77%.
Oh no! Oh no!
I mean, that's still not bad though. That's not bad overall. I think the quantity of aquariums can play into this too. Or if you have one really nice one, you're probably safe. But when you get like 3 or 4, it probably gets more slightly invasive MTS syndromes are
I
a
bet.
legit thing.
I think the other part I think you probably touched on the other part is I bet it becomes more contentious when it starts to impact family life.
Yeah,
So when you can't go on vacation or like,
that's fair.
when the tank has to be taken care of or becomes a significant, um,
Yeah,
significant component of family life is when maybe it becomes more contentious.
that does definitely add to it. Like I think now I'm like, okay, I have multiple tanks to feed. I got dart frogs to feed. We have a dog to feed. There definitely is a lot more involved now. The more creatures you keep. If you look at some people, like it would almost be trickier to go away when you like I see some people and they have like a whole room dedicated to like different reptiles and different creatures and fish and lizards and it's a lot of creatures. Like you need a good buddy that can do that for you when you go away. Even now I'm like, oh, might take off for a week. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need someone to feed this.
So what do you do when you go on vacation? Like with your systems, do you have somebody who comes in? Do you leave instructions?
Actually, I
Like
usually
how does it work?
my dad's actually really good. He'll usually come stay here and feed the dog and the fish and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. My wife was
So
good a couple times I've been gone. She even fed the dart frogs. I know the whole like flightless fruit fly thing she was not a fan of, but she did it, so that was good. That's the only downfall on that front. Do you know? I don't know if this is a good idea or plausible, but one day I think it'd be really cool to do a saltwater paludarium, to have like the whole jungle above and all the saltwater reef on the bottom. I think that'd be really cool to find a way to like merge the two together. I've been slowly
Sounds like
pondering this for a while.
something you should do.
I might eventually, but it's got to be
I
really
mean,
big and
how
really
hard?
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, how hard can it really be though?
I've already been devising it in my head,
I
like how
mean,
you.
really, the you just need,
Huh?
yeah. The interesting question I think would be like, would you make it so that the auto top off is the water system
Yes.
for the terrestrial stuff, or would you keep the two separate? Because if you kept the two separate, it might be it'd be harder to make maybe,
Hmm.
but it would actually probably be easier to maintain.
Yeah, I would agree. Mohammed, the more it's automated, the less the family complains, the more we all enjoy it. I agree with that one, to be honest. Like, the less you have to bugger with it, and the more you just, look how pretty it is and enjoy it, it's definitely a win-win. But yet, no, I definitely agree with yours. I've been debating this for a while, actually. I'm starting slowly devising. I would have like a shallow reef below it. I'd use something like a blade because they're fanless. They're, basically waterproof-ish underneath of it. So yeah, I'd have it like, 50% under the
Mm.
vivarium, 50% out. And then you could use something like a blade that's super sleek and minimalistic underneath to light it. So you'd have really good lighting that you wouldn't see, which would be cool. Then if you want, you could either have its own auto top off, or you could have the misters act as your auto top. I don't know. I'm slowly devising this in my head. I still don't know if it's a good idea to mix the two, but it'd be sweet. What's going on, Reef Me? What's up, Brandon
Yeah,
Scott? Right? What do you think?
I don't know. What do people think? What do people think of this ambitious Devon project?
All right. Okay. We're up to 24 volts. 75% yes, 24% no. So that's not bad. It's pretty good. I'm watching it slowly creep up and down.
Wow.
I know. All
Hmm.
right. What do you guys think in the chat? Would it be cool to see a saltwater paludarium style? So you have like saltwater fish, creatures, all this cool stuff, and like all like the live plants and jungle above it. I know it'd be a lot easier to do with freshwater, but I think it'd be cooler to do with saltwater.
Like that's the other thing I'm trying to imagine is like what does the biotope look like too? Like would you do I mean it's like I feel like in nature that doesn't really occur that much.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
fair.
mean? Like most places where I mean or at least I've seen it could be cuz typically you either end up with cuz reef likes rock,
Yeah.
right? And so it you don't really usually get reef in like lagoons where you have jungle overhanging as much. Usually you have like rock, old coral reef,
Yep.
basically bluffs with
Mm-hmm.
then reef down underneath it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, mangroves, there's not really coral growing around like mangroves typically because they usually grow in kind of mud and dirt, right? So it would basically be a completely fictitious,
Fair.
more of a fictitious environment.
I've seen some loosely with brackish water, just not all out salt water.
Well, right. Well, so brackish, right? Because then you'd have
With mud
mangroves,
skippers and like
mud
random.
skippers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like full on reef with coral doesn't really
But how
occur.
cool would it be though?
It would
I
be
don't know.
totally cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Like
Yeah.
I think you're onto something here. I think it would be as
There's
long as
potential.
as long as it looks natural somehow, right?
That's
Like
true. That's true. It's I don't know, it's weird, but I really love the contrast of seeing like a reef and like a jungle. Like sorry you guys can't see it. But on one side of me I got like this like rainforesty looking jungle, and the other side of me I got a reef. And it's like really cool to see the contrast, like the blues, the glows to like the luscious greenery. Like if you combine them into one, I think it'd be something magical. We'll see. We'll keep pondering. If anyone has any really good ideas on this one, let me know in the chat or the comments later. But I think this would be super cool to do at some point in time. One day it'll happen. I
I
effing
feel
love
like
mud skippers. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
that would be another cool nano tank, like a mud skipper tank.
Can they work in a nano? Like how big of a tank? I'm googling this
I
mud
don't
skipper.
know.
They're such weird
I,
creatures. They're cool though. Oh, they're pretty tiny actually.
I mean, they come in all sizes. I mean, going back to my childhood, they were one of the most common like tide pool fish or mud
Really?
skippers. Yeah, they're pretty cool. They would like hop out and sit on the rock
That's awesome. If I lived by the
and then hop
ocean,
back in.
I'd be like in the tide pools weekly. I love exploring them and seeing all the weird little creatures and stuff you find. It's fun.
Yeah, then you would have like 20 aquariums.
Yeah, it'd be dangerous. Yeah, I know. But at least I'd be like, oh, look what I found in the ocean today. There's actually, I don't know if he still has it. There was a guy locally that had a cold water reef tank. And I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
just like went for a couple hour drive down to the coast and found cool stuff to stock it with. But it was pretty cool to see like all the cold water stuff. Like
that
there's
cold water is weird. It is
yeah,
so cool. It is so weird looking.
but there's some
Yeah.
insanely colorful, cool cold water stuff too. So I'm like, huh, if I lived by the ocean, I'd totally do it. But
Yep. Time to
water,
move to the ocean.
well, if only.
So how's your main display doing?
The water
I
box is
haven't
doing
checked
awesome.
recently.
Oh, you're slacking. I actually posted a video on Monday on it. And
Oh yeah,
the water
definitely have to.
box, yeah, check it out later. The water box is doing awesome. Things look absolutely magical, beautiful. My office tank beside me was looking kind of crappy. It was very neglected. I finally decided to give it some love and recalibrated the auto testers, added more. Not that I need more, but I got more auto testers on there. I gave it a big water change, so I'm finally just like revamping it, getting it back to happy. And I think that's, I don't know, one of the big things. I need to give it some more love again. I'm finally doing it. It was a little neglected over the past year.
How long has your water box been set up now? I remember the agonization that you went through over the rockscape,
You
the
got lots
back
of
and
updates.
forths of the yeah. Gonna do this. No, I'm not gonna put this rock here. I'm gonna put this rock here.
So I spammed Jay with like, he probably every couple of days he probably
What do
got
you think
updated
about
photos.
this rock? Should I put it here? What about this?
I spent like a month on that aquascape. Uh, I don't know. Let me look what my first video
It's
was.
3 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Let me find out. Ryan, thank you for $5 super chat. I appreciate it. I am looking at when I posted the first video on it on YouTube. That's kind of like my timeline is going back at old videos. Dun, dun, dun. It's gotta be. So this was 3 years ago. I have one of me installing the light bar on the wall. So 2.5, 3 years ago ish. Yeah, we'll say 3 years probably. 2.5, 3 years. I'll figure it out. But it's definitely like in its groove
It
now.
almost feels weirdly. It feels longer than that, but
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah, I got one 3 years ago when it's me mounting the light bar. So 3 years or less, because that's when I did it. But it's like the cool thing is like over time, your tank finally hits this groove, and stuff is just happy. It thrives. It grows. Like the first year is always a bit rocky, until you hit that point where things just kind of settle. Your tank finds this groove, and then the majority of things will thrive. But the first year there's always like weird things. Like my office tank, same thing. Like it had like weird cyano things and whatever that other Chryso fights. It's went through a lot of like rough things, and now it's finally like okay. I think it's finally like doing pretty good. So I'm like, okay, I will start to give you love and attention and get you back on track. But
yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? How it's always a bit of a struggle at the beginning, and then especially, I mean, it makes a big difference too. I think most people now, and I think you included, right? That
mhm.
was all largely fake rock, right?
Yeah,
Like
oh
like
yeah, 100% dry.
fake reef rock, and it really does take a while, and it's like I think it's probably good that all the other tech has improved so much because it's amazing when you start a tank with
Yeah,
actual real live rock how fast it goes versus the kind of
yep,
6 months of like weirdness. Like that's the best way to describe it.
yeah,
No two tanks seem to go exactly the same
so
when
true.
you use dry rock.
Now,
Um,
now my original first reef tank, I just bought it from like someone locally, like Live Rock, when he literally had this like 100-gallon tank sitting on his floor, packed full of rock with a single lionfish swimming around in it. But I remember that. I mean, they're like picking out rock, being
that
like,
was
"Don't sting me, don't
that
sting
was the
me."
state of the art tank back then, though. That was the aquascape to have,
But
wasn't
that's
it? What was the old rule? Wasn't it something like one
pound per
ton
gallon,
of rock
a
for one
ton,
1 gallon of water? Do you
basically.
remember? Do you remember? Like that's when I got started. People were showing me. I'm like, they're like, look at my aquarium. I'm like, that looks like a pile of rubble with some fish swimming around
It
in
is.
it.
But that's what we need. Isn't it funny how things have changed? And I look at some of the minimalistic scapes now when they're like, there's barely any rock in there. Where's your mountain? Like how things have changed over time.
It's a shame though, because that big pile of rock would have been really helpful to all the aspiring people around. Like, like you just have this continuous supply of cycled rock, like ready to go.
Hey, that's a valuable thing these days. Like my earlier tanks, they cycled and were set up way faster because I had that. Like even now, I'm like setting up a new tank. I'm like, oh, I should just like I almost debated throwing my rockscape in the sump of my current tank and letting it cycle in there, but yeah, I didn't do that. But if you have that live rock to transfer
I mean,
the new
that's a
tank,
really good idea, actually. I didn't even think about that. Like, if you have a big tank and you're doing a nano tank, just
I
put it
thought about
all
it.
in the sump.
And
Yeah.
I plan on doing some new reefer video content as well, so I was making myself be 100% new reefer. However, these are things that crossed my mind. I was like, nope, you will do it the normal way. So yeah. Okay, Ryan, sorry if I missed it. Do plants help with CO2? They absolutely do, some more so than others. Certain ones like spider plants and different ones are more efficient at taking out CO2 of the air and converting it. Some plants, they don't do much, but plants definitely do help. I have heard of some people literally putting tons of plants in their fish room and it making a noticeable impact on pH. So it can. I mean, it's not going to be like a night and day difference, but all those little bits do add up. Jay, I'm curious how your pH will be with all your plants in there for your new office desktop Nano in the works, or soon to be in the
Well,
works.
yeah, I think I am. I mean, we were talking about this. I think I am going to put it right here, actually, just so that when I'm working from home, I can enjoy it. I have a room next door down here, which is actually in the finished part of the basement, which is absolutely perfect for aquariums.
Mm,
And if it weren't for all the other commitments in my life, I'd probably put like 300s in there because there's nothing there but it already has a sink and a water line.
oh,
Like it already is,
the
you know what I
dream.
mean? So like it's just a big square room with a concrete floor. So it would be absolutely perfect for, or vinyl, but it's like, underneath it's concrete. So it'd be absolutely perfect for large scale fish tanks. But, I know better. I know that would be the end of my marriage. I think if they showed up. There is a 90-gallon that will most likely go in there that my wife is not aware of yet. Fortunately, she does not watch live streams, so
You got hope. You should sneak in a saltwater paludarium and be my guinea pig.
I'll try to do what I do with other things, which is just buy it, set it up, and pretend like it's always been there.
What do you mean? It's been
Uh,
there since we moved in. You just noticed it? Well, apparently I've been in my office in a while.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know this tank's been here since we moved in. The previous people left it here. It's fine.
I know, right? Winston, Saltwater Paludarium. Yes, want to see vivarium update. I'll film one either for next Monday or the Monday after. Within the next 2 weeks, I'll film an update.
I got a sneak peek and it looks really awesome. So
Thank you, thank
definitely
you.
do an update.
I'm very happy with how it's filling in. Okay.
Actually, and is the Paludarium the leap? Is that the leap, or you have the other one too?
Well, they're both vivarium. So the leap I built because I started breeding. I don't for whatever reason I was like, oh, it might be fun to like collect these eggs and like raise tadpoles. So I did, and then I had all these baby frogs. I'm like, I gotta put them somewhere. So then I set up the leap, a second habitat for all my like grow and all my little creatures. So I'll include both of them. I'll do like a full update on it. The Annie manga. I'm transferring Reef to a new tank. Any tips? Personally, I always use new sand because there's a lot of crap that builds up in your sand, especially if you don't vacuum it on a regular basis. Another thing that I've done in the past, if you have the ability to have both tanks set up at the same time, I've done a bit of a water change between the two tanks. So you put some of your old water in the new tank, so it kind of like levels out the parameters and also gives your stuff a big water change at the same time. Aside from that, I tend to use new sand, and then we'll just move all my rock and my stuff in, and it's usually not that big of a deal to do it. It's a lot of work, but usually everything's fine with that process.
How The only thing with that is just depending on how big the tank is, because I
Mm-hmm.
actually had this exact same experiences. And yeah, doing the sand works. If you don't want to get new sand, the other thing you can do is you can wash the sand,
Yeah,
which may or may not be less impactful because
and
what
kill the
you
bacteria.
can, yeah, it will, but it doesn't seem to be quite as extreme. Like it's more the other way. When if you put new sand in and you move the rock, you'll usually get a massive bacterial spike because
Yeah.
you're giving it all of what's there, like a big canvas of new stuff. But I
It,
mean,
if you are going to reuse your sand, what I found the best solution is fill up a 5 gallon bucket, half, 3/4 full, take a garden hose and shove it to the bottom, and all the junk will basically percolate up and overflow out, and just run it for like 20 minutes, and then it'll be pristine and clear, and then your sand's basically clean to reuse it. Just, obviously drain out as much water as possible so you don't get any potential chlorine and stuff in there, but otherwise, it should be good to go. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's not that much hard work. I mean, the hose does it all. But that's what I've done to clean sand to reuse it. But a lot of the time, I'll just use new sand and then eventually clean it or give it away or whatever, the old sand. But
oh, and one time, right? One
what?
time, it's funny because we were talking about Patrick Foster. Why do all the crazy reef stories always seem to involve Patrick Foster?
Little Patrick.
He came down. He came down for a visit one time, and while he was down for a visit, my carbon reactor popped open and filled the tank with carbon.
Yeah.
So my nice, beautiful white sand bed was like completely like
Speckled,
intermingled with speckles, peppered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think because I think we took it out and we literally washed it out.
Yep.
And he was telling me what he does at Reef Wholesale is they use a cement mixer.
Really?
So they run it in a cement mixer, because it's just continually tumbling it, and then with the water in, which is just interesting to me. Like he said, like it basically cleans it back to new, and just weird stuff.
You got to run in like 3 minutes, so.
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yeah, you told me you had a hard cut, so.
Got to get to take my daughter to dance.
I know. That's
Thanks
good.
for the reminder.
You are most welcome. I got you. So hopefully, I think we'll probably cut it short. So you got to leave in like 2 minutes. So I don't want you to be late. Super shameless.
I got 4 minutes. Don't cut me too short here.
All right. We'll take
3 minutes now.
We'll take that 3 minutes. Super quick shameless plug. I started an Etsy store of cool reef shirts last week, which I will paste in the chat if anyone wants to check it out. My goal is to basically do a new cool design every single week, so I'm going to keep expanding it. So I added a really cool dart frog one, totally not reefing, but I made one last night and did some other cool ones. So yeah, every week I'm going to try and do a new design. That's my challenge to myself. And then I ordered myself a bunch because I want some cool new shirts.
That reminds me, actually, next time we hang out, I need to buy a one of your ReefDudes shirts off of you.
You're going to have so many options soon?
Yeah, nice.
I know. I got to order some new ones. Got a question. Dedicated Reefer, you got like 2 minutes. Go fast. Ask away. I thought reusing sand can cause anaerobic bacteria. Okay, you can reuse sand if you clean it first. Rinse it very, very well. You will kill your bacteria, but that's what you got to do. Technically, all sand is used, right? It comes from the ocean. All sand is used. There is no new sand. There's clean sand or dirty sand. So cleaning it will kill your bacteria unless you want to rinse with salt water, but that'd be very expensive. So most people use a garden hose, and it's basically dead sand after that. Fish Ventura, thank you so much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Dedicated Reefer, if my pH is 8.4, my elk is 7, how can I raise my elk without affecting my pH? There is sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. I never remember which one's which, but one of them has a very minimal impact on pH. That's the one you want to use. Do you remember which one's which? I feel like it's... I don't know. I'm sorry, I always forget.
I always call you when I have these sorts of issues.
So that will work. Is your XR15 schedule on the MXM module yet? Paul said he would add it to the different models of them. I will bug him again if he hasn't done it yet. So they should hopefully all be available soon. But I was bugging Paul on that one. Because apparently...
Do you have a ReefDudes?
Oh, I sure do.
Do we have a Mobius profile set? Yeah.
No, but you should. We will
you
make
don't
sure
have
that
a Mobius profile?
There should be. I have a
you
profile.
You deserve a Mobius profile,
Thank
Devin.
you. A lot of people like my
yeah,
schedule. A quick, here you go. 1 more minute, so I'm going to throw this out there. So my schedule is essentially based off of AB+, but I also have a lot of a wider period throughout the day. That there's roughly 4.5 hours of more of a wider very crisp, still vibrant schedule. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, the whiter and the bluer, and kind of a mix, and does the ramp ups and downs in the heavy blues. But for Acropora, they appreciate the fuller spectrum. I personally feel you get better growth and better coloration from having that. That's why I have that high noon period. Plus, you get the different things. Yeah, there you go. Piotr, sorry, I don't know how to say your name. Love your schedule. Thank you. So tons of people have used mine. Tons of people love it. To me, it's the best of both worlds of the different looks of the tank, and you get better coral growth, in my opinion. So I think it's a win-win. I will bug Paul and make sure that they're added to the different light options in Fusion if you're using the MXM module. I'm also going to bug Jay for making sure it's in the Mobius app. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would have thought by now we'd have a picture of you in there with the.
I don't know. I feel like I sent it to you. We'll see. We'll see.
Devin's profile
Reminder.
No, I know it was going that way for a while. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I can double check on that. It's kind of entertaining.
Okay,
actually.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Okay, you gotta take your kids to dance. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's live stream. I appreciate everyone hanging out. If you want to check out my new Etsy shop, as of a week ago, there's a link in the description. Lots of cool reefing shirts. You got any really cool like fishy puns? Like I'm totally gonna do the bad puns. I love them. They make me happy. So I want to do lots of shirts on them. So let me know in the description. Jay, thank you for coming on. You enjoyed it? Hit the like button. You're new, subscribe, all that good stuff.